Welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Hello. It's wonderful to be here with you at Lead Live. Today, we're going to talk about the wealth equation. And specifically, we're going to talk about the all-in mindset and how to win big. Dr. Kwende may be joining us today. We are expecting him, but life happens. And as he and others say brilliantly, we don't panic, we pivot. So thank you for joining us. The reason why we have this topic is because oftentimes we think about opportunities, possibilities, and what do? Some of us don't think too long. We do, as one of my mentors has said, Odell Johnson says, you think too much. Don't think too much. Just move. Make a decision and move. And as another mentor of mine has said, Bob Proctor, lead. Just lead now. Choose to remove yourself from whatever cage you may find yourself. That is a reflection of the socialization that we experience as children, as young adults, and even as older adults. Choose to leave that cage. If it doesn't work for us and doesn't enable us to get to the place that we want to get to, just leave. And yes, there's uncertainty. There may be even a great deal of fear, but here's the powerful thing. We can break through, and there's so many examples of us breaking through terror barriers. And so I want you to think about your life. And we benefit from reflecting on our lives. Again, you don't have to reflect too long, but reflect deeply to honor what we have chosen to do, who we've chosen to be, how we've chosen to be. So I've said what, I've said who, I've said how. No one of those is more important than the other. They're all synergistic with a mindset. We are thinking into results every single moment. And as some people more brilliant than I have said historically, our past has ensured that we are where we're at right now. Our thinking in the past, our behaviors of the past, our feelings of the past, the reason why we're where we're at right now. And the reason why we're going to be where we're going to be tomorrow, the next year, the next decade, assuming that we're so fortunate to be here in the next moment, the next year, the next decade, is based upon our thinking now, our feelings now, our actions now. And so I want to thank you for being on this journey with us to think about that wealth equation. And the wealth equation we refer to as those 5 5s, but there's key aspects of those 5 5s. So what are the 5, I should say, F's? Faith, family, fitness, finance, and fun. And so we're going to talk about those in a broad way. And thank you, Olive, for joining us. So appreciate you being here with us. So what are we talking about when we talk about those 5 5s? In terms of an all-in mindset, how to win big. When we say wealth, we're talking about all of those. We're not talking about one absent the other. We get to choose our families in addition to being born into families. And if you're lucky like Olive and other people, you get to experience those beautiful people you're born into and leverage them. And sometimes your lives, as you experience them as a child or adult, they work, they're perfect, they're beautiful, even with some challenges mixed in. Others have the other extreme. You don't have the opportunity to live with those folks who are part of your birth family, like me, who was a foster child, a little bit homeless for a spell, but somehow you know how to make it work, whether you have one extreme or the other or somewhere in between. The power is not only in those circumstances. The real power, the ultimate power, is in the mindset that we hold and how we hold it in terms of our emotional mind. That's the heart-mind connection. And how we hold it in terms of our behavior, what we choose to do with that embodies our mindset at the conscious level and the subconscious level. Now, let me go a little bit deeper when I say conscious level and subconscious level. Part of our power, we understand we have a mind, and the mind, we know scientifically, is more than just embodied or embedded in our brain. It's in every cell of the body. And there's sufficient research to suggest that the mind is not even contained within the body. That's a whole nother line of discussion. I may bring on individuals with that expertise to even get us connected to that reality. But let's stick with the mind, and let's use a model that was created by a chiropractic doctor who saw, on average, 500 patients a day back in the 30s. Dr. Fleet. He came up with this model, and I should have an image here, and I'll share it in a subsequent broadcast, where it's consider a circle. And for the sake of this model, we just consider that's the mind, even though we know the mind is not contained within a circle, nor the brain, and not just the body. But let's look at that circle. Put a line across the middle of that circle, and then consider the top of that circle to be the conscious mind, and the lower part of that circle to be the unconscious mind. So the conscious mind is the thinking mind. It is where we use those mental faculties of what? Of imagination. That's a mental faculty. Intuition, believe it or not, that's a mental faculty. Will, that's a mental faculty. Memory, reason, those are mental faculties. Okay? And then we have the subconscious mind, that lower half of the mind, for the sake of this explanation. And what is that lower half of the mind? That's the unconscious mind. That's the emotional mind. That's what I call the heart-mind connection. Why do I mention that? Most of us think that we're thinking and therefore we do. We have found the contrary through scientific research. In fact, the vast majority of us, even those who are highly successful, 95 to 99% of what we do is driven by the emotional mind. And if we understand that, and I've said this more than once on this broadcast, for emphasis to be added, I want to remind us of the power of that unconscious mind, that emotional mind. Now, here's the real power that we have as humans. We get to shift what's in that at the unconscious level. We get to transform it. And yet we have to do it in some habitual way, because what are we if not our habits, right? We do things daily throughout the day without even thinking. It's rare that we think about a lot of the things we do. We take them for granted. We get up, we take a shower, we brush our teeth, we wash our face, maybe in a certain particular order, without even thinking about it. And then we're ready to start our day. Go have breakfast. If we consume coffee, tea, whatever it is, we just do it ritualistically. Well, in order to change those unconscious habits, what is driven by the subconscious mind, we have to decide that at the conscious level. We have to change particular habits. But before we do that, we have to imagine what it is that we want at the other end. Because guess what happens? Our emotional mind drives us to behave in certain ways that are predictable. And quite frankly, many of us love certainty, right? We like predictability. And so therefore, we already know what's going to be the result, because we're doing the same thing we did before. We're likely going to achieve the same result. If we want a different outcome, then we need to shift things at the conscious level in order to shift things at the subconscious level, in order to shift things in terms of our behavior, and then shift things in terms of the results. You've heard that saying. How do you expect to get a different result by doing the same thing? No, you don't. That's weird. That's unusual. Could happen, but highly unlikely. We want to change things. We have to change the unconscious mind. How do you do that? You use those mental tools. How do you do that? You decide what it is that you want at the other end of the behaviors, and then walk back and say, okay, here's the new habit I want to put in place after I decide upon what it is I want to achieve. And I would recommend, as Dr. Kwende would recommend, is that you really focus on going in all the way. We call it winning big. That means all in mindset. clarifying what that big goal is. So you want to build a business, go in all big. You don't have to tell anyone. It's your own personal imagining. It's your vision. Decide you want a multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar business. Don't go in halfway. I just want to get by. I want to have enough money in order to pay my rent or buy a house or buy a car. Go all in. Make it powerful. That's why we have these big organizations that we have. Someone at some place, at some point, imagined and then brought in other people who imagined even more. And the imaginings just increased to the power of the potential of each individual who contributed to it. So think about that. What do we mean by all in mindset? We mean really clarifying what it is that you want. Understand that you're not going to get it just because you want it. Because again, you're driven by what? The emotional mind. And it just wires us to behave a certain way. Yes, we can write something down and be absolutely adamant. But if we're not emotionally connected to it, forget about it. When we're emotionally connected to it, things happen. When noise comes in where people say, oh, you can't do that. What do you mean? You can't pursue that. Don't waste your time. Don't hurt your feelings. Don't undermine our understanding of you. When those kinds of messages or even barriers come up where you can't get the loan that you need, you need the right kind of team and everyone's saying no, it's easy to give up. And when you're not emotionally connected to it, you will. So that's the power of the emotions. They'll get you out of bed when you don't even want to get out of bed. You'll be up 3 o'clock in the morning. You'll be up 6 o'clock. You will go to bed by 10 o'clock. You'll go to bed 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, let me be very careful. We want you to be fit, so we don't want you to overdo it. But we want you to understand when you have a passion for whatever that dream is, nothing will get in your way. All those naysayers, all the noise will be neutralized, or you won't even hear it at all. It's like a musician. I'm thinking about someone who's playing the drums and at the beat. And when I'm listening to it, nothing else matters. It may be a shriek of a car or a dog barking, but when the drums are going, all I could hear are the drums. I'm in sync. Well, imagine that with your life. You're so in sync with that imagining, that powerful goal that came from a powerful imagining, that fantasy goal that is worthy of you. So when you're walking down the street, you're paying attention, hopefully. You're not on the phone, doing your thing. You're paying attention, but you're so laser focused, you get to your destination in record time. And people are like, oh my God, how'd you do that? It's like a whirlwind. Well, you remain focused and you use the tools that are accessible to you. And there are many, many more. Thank you so much for joining us, Tomoko, again. She says, we don't panic, we pivot. That's been a constant during 2020. When so much has been thrown at us, I'm proud of what I was able to conquer during these times of uncertainty and shelter in place, especially as a mom juggling family, career, and still have fun. You got it. You got it. You got it. This year has been a very challenging year for those who have been successful and those who've not been successful. And the difference between those who are successful and not as successful as they want to be, whatever that means, and each person defines success for him or herself, is how they spend their time. Because we have the same 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's how we spend our time. Do you allow yourself to stop in the morning, reflect on in a way that allows you to experience gratitude, and do the same thing before you rest? That's powerful. If you don't do that, I strongly recommend it. Just minutes. I'm not even talking about hours of meditation. I'm talking about minutes. Transformative, the way it just shifts the vibration in the body around you, and that it vibrates out to the universe. And as people see you, they don't even know why, but there's something special about you. You don't even know why, perhaps, because you're not focusing on that gratitude. You're just so grateful. And you just bounce with it without even being aware that you're bouncing. Your step is lighter. Your perspective is glass is half full, even though the glass is still the same as it was the day before when you were a little bit in distress. And we're not grateful for even the distress. Think about that. When you get up in the morning, do you have a path, a set of new habits that allows you to get to the new results that you want? If you don't, I recommend that you do. And don't spend a lot of time on it. I begin by saying you can think, reflect, go deeply, but you don't have to spend hours, weeks, or years on it. Perfection, we should never seek. Greatness, absolutely. And what's greatness? Is illuminating those 5 F's in a way that is healthy, additive, adds value. And again, those 5 F's are what? Faith. Faith, however you choose to imagine that healthy, positive, affirming, complementary state. Family. Your birth family, or if you're like me, the family you chose, including members of your birth family. Fitness, how you think, how you feel, what you do physically to complement the way you want to think, the way you want to feel, and how you spend the space that you're in, whether you're sleep mode or awake mode, that complements your fitness. What do I mean by that? There's a lot of noise out there, whether it's television, radio, people, sound of vehicles, etc. Remember, I said I leverage the drums to take me to that space that allows me to kind of float in and float out and just be disconnected as much as I want to, but really hone in to the connection of the drums. Well, that may be for you, or it may be a clarinet, or it may be a saxophone. It may be, in fact, dance. It may be a sports game. All these arts, it may be the creative arts where you're looking at a piece of an extraordinary painting. It may be reading a book. It may be prayer. It may be deep meditation. Whatever you need to do to get to that space, I strongly recommend you do it at least once a day as a gift to yourself, to really illuminate that spiritual space. I think that is all of us, that vibrational space, however you want to clarify that energy, that energetic force that's within each one of us. And then, of course, finance. So much of what we're going to be talking about in 2020 will be specifically financial education. So if you want to learn some of the things that are highly associated with those who, whether they were born into wealth or they created a new legacy of wealth for their family, you want to tune in. It's going to be quite illuminating. I've learned a lot in the last 3 months that I had no clue about in all of my years. And I'm not proud of that. And yet I am more determined that this broadcast, Lead Live, shares with you some of those key tools so that you can move forward more efficiently. So there are some common language, or language, I should say, that's part of the common currency for those who are extremely wealthy on this planet, whether they're in this country or any other place outside of the United States. There's common currency. I want it to be among all of us. So tune in for every month next year for specific segments on financial education, so that that part of the wealth equation is absolutely solid for you. And then, of course, we said fun. So I'm going to work with you on that. And if anyone in the audience has recommendations on what that might look like, please share your recommendations. I have many loved ones, friends, colleagues, family members among them who have fun all the time. And I marvel And it never occurred to me until recently that my life could be full with fun. And that's also part of next year. We'll be talking about the things that really ensures a rounded person, you, so that you're going all in with those 5S, as opposed to a tepid response to some of them and all in with finance or all in with fitness any one of those alone does not make wealth. The combination of all 5 frees one's up. And the potential in each one of those areas ratchets up exponentially or increases exponentially. So I want to at least take some of the questions that are there, Jet, because I can go on, and I want to make certain that the audience gets some of their questions answered. Does winning big mean that some or many have to lose big? Okay. When I saw that question earlier, so the initial answer is no. Winning big ideally means that we have more examples, an example, if you're the one who's winning big, of how to win big. Winning big should mean that it should be evidence for all of us that we have the capacity. Yes, there are structural issues, whether they're one ism or another, especially racism, sexism, homophobic, all kinds, ageism. There are a lot of structural and impediments impediments to any particular group, and some groups more than others, to moving forward. If you have a legacy of being poor, the mindset is poor, so you're more likely to stay there unless and until you change that mindset. And then the vista is yours. So winning big should be a beautiful example, assuming it's done with integrity, legal, all that stuff. Should be a great example for all of us. But we have a tendency of asking this question: if I win, do others lose? Because of the mindset, at least in this country, and hopefully it's not pervasive around the world, but we know it is in many countries, in all of the continents. And that is that there's finite resources. And when we believe there's finite resources, when we really believe and we operate at an unconscious level that there's insufficient resources, then the only way for me to win is at your expense. When we back up and say, whoa, wait, is that the right paradigm? Is that accurate? Or is that just contrived? And more importantly, how do we shift that into a new paradigm where there's an understanding that there's sufficient resources? And how do I know that? We create the resources when we need them. So when we understand that there's sufficient resources and there's enough for everybody, then get out the way. We leverage all the big wins to our advantage. You win, you've given me more latitude and more examples and more incentive to win. And you remind me of my capacity to win. So Tomoko writes, there are so many resources that can change your life. I listened to audiobooks, The Automatic Millionaire, Think and Grow Rich, The Magic of Thinking Big, The Secrets of a Millionaire Mindset. These books are out there. It's up to you on what you feed and how and what you feed your mind. And as you can tell, that is an example of a person who chooses to be open and chooses to expand her perspective. And it resonates with me. I'm, of course, biased. I love books. This is just a small sample of all of my books in my place and elsewhere in storage. I love books. And in fact, I'm trying to give those books I have in storage away because they shouldn't be in storage. They should be in the hands of people reading. There's so much genius and insights and perspectives. And some of you viewing probably have written more than one book. And so we leverage that learning. We leverage those insights. We leverage those examples. We leverage those resources in order to break out of our whatever confines that we may be in because of our socialization, because we only know what we know because of the external constraints that are on us, but we get to break those chains and get out of whatever container that we currently reside in. Okay, next question, Jet. What are tactics to winning big and keeping your wins? Okay, that has two major questions. So, what are some strategies? First of all, I'm going to simplify it, as Dr. Kwende would say. Keep it simple. So, one, you want to have that fantasy goal. From my humble perspective, you want to have something that you're emotionally connected to. It's going to get you and keep you focused no matter what. No matter what. Okay, that's one. Two, you want to have a plan to achieve that, even if you don't know the how, the details of all those plans. And in fact, those are the best goals when you don't know the how. when the folks, and it was more than one person, was creating Apple, they didn't know all the hows, but they were all in. When the folks were creating HP, they didn't know all the hows. They just were all in. And they weren't always all in fully. They had to recommit, leverage each other. So there's all these details of what occurred in the process. When the folks created, oh goodness, there's companies that no longer exist. They were all in. Let's take Kodak, a precursor to Kodak. I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, it was all in, doing exceptionally well, but didn't pivot, didn't see the digital age, didn't pivot. And so others filled that space. So let's just think about that. All in. What was that question? What tactics? Be clear about where you want to go, develop a plan, and actually, I would say developing the plan and being clear where you want to go are part of one. Two, it's leveraging others, the expertise, whether it's in books or individuals directly, leverage others as mentors to form 3 people, 5 people, odd number, but under 10 mastermind groups where everyone else is an expert in an area that you're interested in. And you're an expert in an area that they need. So everyone needs everyone, but you're not there for you. You're there to be in support of others. And others likewise are there to be in support of you and everyone else as part of that mastermind group. That's what makes it powerful. So leverage others as individuals or as part of a mastermind group. And the third is to use new daily habits, a minimum of 45 days, I would suggest, preferably 60 days. And then all of a sudden they become habits. They become normal practice. You don't even think about it. Those are the 3 things I would say initially. And then be open, because things are going to happen. People are going to come to you and say, I've got this, it's happened. Let me be very clear. I'm going to use these examples. I'm going to use real examples. I have this extra $1 million. I need to invest it someplace. And I know you've got some good colleagues who are doing some remarkable work. And you're thinking, oh my God, I could use that. And so how did this person even know to come to me with this? And then you be open to saying yes. You don't say, oh, it's not for me, it's from one of my colleagues. Be open to saying yes. Or someone says, I've got these skills and I'm not doing anything. I have to stay at home and I'm no longer working and I just want to do some pro bono work. And you need the skill. The skill is helping with social media. Leverage it. Don't say, oh no, it's a friend of mine. I really don't want to do that. Well, leverage it, because you'll pay for that. When you bring in the resources you need, you will pay that friend. So when you set that goal, when you create that plan, when you interact with people, guess what? And you begin to behave in a certain way, you will get all kinds of feedback that will show that literally you have what you need when you otherwise thought you didn't have what you need. So why pursue it? Okay. Now, with regards to keeping your wins, be less concerned about possession, control. Be more concerned about gratitude and winning big. Yes, go ahead and set up the mechanisms to ensure that your revenue that you bring in, your other assets, products and services that you bring in, that you deliver them in a way that makes sense. If there's revenue, you place them in instruments that will compound. Very important. And that's a whole nother conversation that we'll have in January about compounding interest. Your dollar netting you in 6 to 7 years at least 50% more, if not 100% more. That's what you want to be thinking about, as opposed to just putting in the bank and saying, okay, everything's going to be fine. Not likely. Or putting it in some other instrument that provides you with marginal returns. You want to guard against that. So keeping your wins, you want to be very smart, intelligent, set up the infrastructure for that, and leave it alone. Just continue to move money there, have it compound. Before you know it, you have the kinds of financial wealth that you're looking for. Next question. I've witnessed wins by folks who were expected to win and by folks no one thought would be successful. What's the formula? Is there a formula? Simply put, let me be very clear. You are the formula. I am the formula. Each one of us embodies the formula. So what do I mean by that? It was like, yeah, right. Okay, let's be very clear. What do we have? I already emphasized the power of our thinking mind, our unconscious mind. That power manifests every single day in terms of results. We're powerful beyond measure. Let's be clear. This microphone, someone imagined it initially. This computer, this beautiful Macintosh, someone imagined it initially. This camera, the same thing with the lighting, this television, everything. Someone imagined these things first. And then they went about the business of making it happen. And oftentimes they didn't have the resources, whether it's money or technical expertise. They just had imagining. That is more powerful than having the money initially. You could have money and have no imagination. Many of us know that, okay? Whether it's a small amount of money or a significant amount of money. It's not that. That's why we talk about the 5 F's: faith, family, fitness, in addition to finance and fun. Because finance, the money in and of itself, does not make one wealthy or even happy, to say the least. So what's the odds of your winning big based upon, what was the question? Oh, is there a formula? Let's keep that up for a moment. I said you are the formula. You're an emotional person, you're a mental person, and you're a spiritual person. You have those 3 major tools to leverage to produce the results you want. When you study anyone who's been successful, whether it's in securing a associate's degree, a baccalaureate degree, a master's degree, a PhD, a medical doctorate, a law degree, I can go on and on and on. Certificate of this, certificate of that, passing an online licensing exam. What separates the person who's achieved those things from those who has not? Think about it. Their mental state, their emotional predisposition. Even if they're afraid like me, I mean, I never did well on tests, and yet I passed many tests in my life. Heck, how did I get to UC Berkeley and 2 PhD programs without being able to pass tests? But oh my goodness. And talk about someone who didn't like reading or writing. I'm now a voracious reader. I was afraid, and I didn't know why. I was afraid because it meant I would experience my emotions. When I read, when I wrote, I had to feel to really understand. And when I got that about myself, then I went about the business of doing whatever self-healing I had to do in order to get over my anxiety, whatever the anxieties were, including reading and writing. We all have them. We're not special in that regards. We all have our truths. We all have our experiences. Wherever we're at on the planet, whatever we're doing, We have our personal geniuses as well. We have expertise within each one of us, independent of conditions. And so we have a tendency of deferring to the other and say, oh my God, look at her. Look at him. Oh my, if only. I say, stop it. I say, recognize within you, wherever you're at, whether you're in a small village, like a village I've seen in China many years ago, where people literally are living on floor or living on dirt. The dirt was cleaner than floors I've seen in the United States. I mean, with smiles on their faces and cultivating food and organizing for families, living on side of mount, where you're living in those conditions or you're living in an extraordinary home that's a mansion really does not matter. What matters is what you have between your ears, throughout your body. I reference the mind as part of the brain. The mind is part of the body, and that expands beyond the body. That mind, that emotional, that intellectual mind, and the energetic forces that make us who we are. We're spirit in these containers temporarily. And hopefully we're honoring these containers, these bodies, in remarkable ways. And the degree to which we choose to use all aspects of this thing called life, embodied in human form, we get to literally pave a path that may not have been paved before. So, yes, there's a formula, and the formula is you. And it's dreaming, operationalizing that dream in a plan, or with goals in a plan, leveraging others with expertise, creating habits that allow you to get to that end, and working it. And as you need to make course corrections, you make course correction, but you don't waver, and you don't waver. One of my sisters is on here. I am so pleased, Parthenia. I'm sharing, teach, motivate, introduce, inform. Well spoken by someone I value highly, who is an educator yourself. Thank you so much for being here, Parthenia. And Tomoko reminds us, yes, mentors. The power of mentors. Whether you seek, like a lot of CEOs of corporations do, they just build into their contract to have a coach, a professional coach, an executive coach, a mentor coach, however it's described. They understand that they know what they know, but they don't know what they don't know. And even knowing what they know, they understand that there are points in time where they need to be able to hear themselves speak through the lens, through the expertise of another who's been there, who understands some of that, or better yet, who understands human behavior and has done his or her research and is best prepared to guide that individual who's affecting many products, affecting many lives, affecting communities. So think about yourself as being your own CEO of your own business. What is your business? Your life. And what you need to do to systematically ensure that you're successful. That's what this is about. That's what LEADLIVE is about. What is leadership? Excellence and achievement on demand. It's about reminding us that each one of us really has the capacity to exceed our own high expectations. And I want to remind you, you are, when you decide, at that moment you decide, you are the CEO of your own corporation. So I'm thinking about a gentleman called Malcolm X, who changed his name to Shabazz, who was born, I can't remember his name, it's the tip of my tongue. When he was in prison, he experienced spiritually some things that most people would say, oh, that's not real. Unless you're like some of us who've experienced that, where they suspend disbelief and allow for the possibilities to occur, and all of a sudden imaginings are transformed. And he didn't stop there. When he got out of prison, he engaged in a way with purpose. And then as he was exposed to other countries and went to the continent of Africa, for example, he transformed again. And before he died, he transformed again. So we have the potential, independent of our age, whether we're still in our teens or younger, or whether we're 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or even hundreds. We have the potential to literally continue to shift, to move into new paradigms that reflects a higher level of consciousness and excellence. And that's really also what this show is all about. It's about reminding us of our ability to continue to grow. And what is life if not growth? What did Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say, or the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say? There are a lot of folks walking around who's older than 20, whatever the age was in the 20s, who are walking dead because they're no longer growing. And we don't want that for any of us. We want to continue to grow and add value. Okay. So, thank you. Other questions, Jet? How long did it take us to be successful? Well, so when Dr. Kwende is on here for the next show, and unfortunately something has kept him delayed, I'm sure he will answer that question and we'll make certain we bring it up. So I have a fun way to answer that. And it's true. The moment I reached consciousness is when I was successful. So what do I mean by that? I remember being a 7-year-old, and it was right after I was beaten. Unfortunately, my brothers and I, it was not unusual for this particular foster home that some of us were in to be physically abused under the guise of teaching us a lesson and making certain that we were operating in some way. We were operating as kids. And so after that experience, I remember sitting someplace because I didn't believe I was my circumstances. And I can't tell you why as a 7-year-old. So I'm sitting there having an out-of-body experience. And it occurred to me that I'm responsible for my life. And it wasn't in this adult understanding that I have now. But as that 7-year-old, I realized that I was responsible. So I had to behave in a way where I had to guard myself from any adult harming in one way or another. And I'd been harmed in different ways. And so, but for some reason, I didn't take it personal, even though I knew it was personal. I just realized adults were just a little bit either harmed themselves, I literally thought that, or ugly, hateful, needed to harm somebody else, and primarily because they had been harmed, or they just were completely disconnected from what it meant to be a child. And so they couldn't honor children, my brothers and I, or even some of the kids who came into this particular foster home. So at that moment, when I was conscious, I decided I was responsible. Success is not a thing. It's not a destination. It's the journey. So for me, that 7-year-old was successful. At the age of 13, I was either 12 or 13, I made a declaration that I'd do something in this life without going to all the details. And the moment I made that declaration, I was successful. And I've well past a lot of it, but not all of it. The date that I decided to go on to college, because I didn't want to be homeless again, and in college, I struggled to learn, to understand how to read, to write, to communicate effectively. But a lot of the other skills I had, for whatever reason, I had just developed them or had them. I was successful as I developed those competencies. And then I decided I wanted to leverage higher education and be an educational ambassador. At the moment I made that decision, I was successful. So it wasn't surprised that over a 38-year period, I went from being a student affairs support person, tutor, whatever, to a coordinator of programs, to a human resources trainer, to a director, to a manager, to a researcher, to a dean, to a vice president, to a president, to an executive vice chancellor. None of that success. It's surprising because I decided that as a 19-year-old. And then every step of my life, usually 6, 7 years, I change course slightly. I want to impact more lives. So I expand. And as I expanded roles. So now I'm leading an organization because my impact is to be global, not just in my backyard. It doesn't negate my backyard. I love it. I love the community intensely. And that's why I commit so deeply. And yet I understand that each one of us has a voice that needs to be shared. And I have to model that most effectively. Each one of us without exception. So for those of you who are in China, who are in the continent of Africa, who are in the continent of Europe, who are in the continent, who are in South America, who are in other continents, who are in Canada, remember, you have a voice that we need to hear. You have expertise we benefit from leveraging. You have tools, you have imaginings. We need you to actually allow them to be created. You have problems that you understand how to solve, or you have solutions to problems, and we need those solutions. People don't know what they don't know. People know what they know. Yes, thanks for reminding us. People don't know what they don't know. None of us does. We do know what we know. By leveraging other people, we not only get to share what we know, we get to learn things that we would otherwise not learn in order to advance forward, not only as an individual, but really more powerfully as a human species. So the notion that some of us have at the disadvantage of others only undermines the entire human species. So we really can't get ahead as a human species if any of us are left behind. And yes, we can say it's about white folks, it's about Black folks, it's about Asians, it's about Pacific Islanders, it's about Latinos, it's about Native Americans, it's about on and on. It's about young, it's about old, it's about male, it's about females, it's about tall, it's about short, it's about big, it's about thin. We can engage in those conversations where we really get to experience the power is in living in the solutions. Racism is real. It has harmed me, it's harmed people I know and I love, and millions of people I may never meet. Actually, billions, now that I think about the planet. And yet, I get in my Blackness, in my Latina background, in my Native American background, in my East Indian background, in my French background, in my other background, I get to pay it forward in a way where other folks of my skin hue does not have to experience the same nonsense as I and others I love that I don't know have. That's the power of each one of us, you and I. So as Dr. Kwende would say, and I'm saying for both of us, go all in. Once you focus on whatever that is that you want to do, it's likely going to be a powerful solution for all of us. Go all in. And even given the struggles and the barriers, let me tell you, I have too many examples, and there are going to be wonderful examples every month next year of individuals who move right through those barriers. We call them terrier barriers. Some of them are our own creation. Many of them have been created, contrived in order to ensure that we don't move forward. So here's the power. We get to move forward anyway. And you are magnificent examples. I'm telling you in advance of your fully actualizing. You are magnificent examples of our greatest potentials. Any other questions? Jet. My partner and I have high hopes for 2021. What are your thoughts about 2021? Should we be doing something different next year than this year if things return to normal? Normal was not okay for the vast majority of people, independent of your background and because of your background. Be you economically disadvantaged or just one paycheck away from being homeless. In this case, now, literally, or whether you have lost more lives, loved ones, due to COVID or other conditions. We don't want normal, right? We want something better than what we've experienced historically. So let's imagine individually and then collectively, what could a better society, a better planet look like, where even the planet itself is healed because of our respect for it, our respect for our own lives, our respect for it in relationship to us. And let's be clear, we are part of nature. We're not separate from nature. The degree to which the planet is healthy, it's part of nature, we're healthier. The inverse is also very, very true, as we're experiencing. So, first of all, don't want normal historically. Want a new paradigm and create normal. It'll take a while for us to embed that and make it part of the universal culture that's now part of the common currency. Collaboration, critical thinking, expanded mindset, innovation, creativity, one with one another, understanding our capacity far exceeds anything that we do. We use such a minuscule aspect of who we are as humans. Did you know that we can transport ourselves to the other part of the planet with the right tools? Literally, young people, adults are doing it now. Planning the mind, being able to see someplace on the other side of the planet. We think that's unusual because we've not slowed down to respect our place in the universe, our place as part of life. Things that we think are weird for so-called psychics and whatever, they're not. They're normal. The degree to which we get to that healthier, simple state of who we really are, all of a sudden the magnificence that's accessible to us are indeed accessible. So what are my thoughts about 2021? I'm excited. I'm hopeful. And that's what keeps me alive. Literally, being my imagining of what is forthcoming is absolutely extraordinary. That we as a species are out of our way and we're so, we're functioning with gratitude. We're sharing resources and they abound. They multiply. I mean, what people read, whether it's in the Bible or it's in the Quran or it's in the Torah or it's in, I don't care what text, whether it's religious or these other texts that are more philosophical, there's so much truth in them about the capacity of us to multiply. We know that in terms of birth, I have a new great nephew. I have a new godson on the way. I have many nieces and nephews. We know that through the birth process. But can you imagine it? Literally leveraging our imagination to a higher power and seeing it, the manifestations so real. Oh my God. Okay, I can go on. So yes, high hopes for 2021. And not only because I believe we have demonstrated as a human species a concern about the planet, even though it's not pervasive throughout all the political arenas, but there's enough engagement at the policy level to shift things there. There's also enough consciousness being shared by especially young people that give me great hope that they will not repeat some of the same things that we did as their elders, and they will literally remedy some of the nonsense that we're trying to reinforce. And hopefully more of us will chart the path before we transition, those of us who are 50 years and older. Any other questions? I'm wondering if this one question Jet was at. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I thought there was another question. Should I consider my odds of winning based on some predictive tool or what I've been told? Well, I don't remember who shared that question, but you decide. You decide. If you've been told things that work, and if you believe what I'm sharing today works for you, then leverage it. You have to be clear about where you want to go in order to determine whether those things work for you. If any aspect of what I've shared or anyone else have shared with you feels uncomfortable, doesn't seem to work, put it on the shelf. It's like a book. You can read it later if it's useful. But if you know something is harmful, immediately get rid of it, even if it means leaving the space where that information is shared with you. Get away, far away, anything that harms you. You know it intuitively. That's a mental tool that is felt. So you decide. Okay? So a predictive tool. I think the best predictor of any one of our success is our mindset, what we've established as goals and we've operationalized, the degree to which we leverage resources around us, and we remain steadfast in developing and implementing new habits to get to that trajectory. We don't let anything dissuade us. Okay, brilliant people. It is now a time to bring this to a close today. I just want to tell you that my appreciation for each one of you is I can't find the right words. It's significant. And the reason why is because I fundamentally believe that the degree to which you are healthy, responsible, happy, engaged in a way that really is fulfilling, you add quality to my life. I don't have to meet you. Vibrationally, I'm experiencing your essence. So the degree to which you're free from whatever chains or cage you think you may have been predisposed to be in, you freed an aspect of me. And you've taken us as a species on a journey that is actually remarkable. And so I want to thank you for choosing a path that works for you and that adds quality to your thinking, to your feeling, to your life. That's what this is all about. It's about you being your best. And yes, it's selfish. It's about me being able to leverage your best to be even better. And remember, perfection, don't worry about that. You can even move forward and don't even cross an eye. You accidentally didn't cross the eye. It's okay. You're forgiven. You're human like the rest of us. Enjoy the journey. Reduce the stress. Have fun. Live life. Remember, you're beautiful and you're loved. Woo. Next week, if you're able to join us, and hopefully you will, but I will understand if you're not, because it's the holiday season. And hopefully, whether it's through Zoom or you have family in your household, you're being safe and you're also going to honor just the time of the year to rest, to rejuvenate. I know you could be working 24/7. Guard against that. Enjoy this time of the year to rejuvenate, reflect, enjoy, rejuvenate. And if you're like a number of us who's in a household by yourself and you don't have the benefit of an animal to be with you, or even talk to people, just know that you're cared about. You're cared about. You are valued. I appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you next week.